So this year, I have been offered a job to work on board a cruise ship by two different cruise lines, and well, I said no to both of them. As many of you may or may not know, I have worked for three different cruise lines: Carnival, Norwegian, and Virgin. It's actually how I started this YouTube channel. Back in 2018, I was working for Norwegian Cruise Line, and the last cruise line that I worked for a short time was the adult-only cruise line Virgin Voyages. And as much as I miss working on cruise ships, I did realize that the bads outweighed the goods. Now, as far as the bads, I thought I'd give you a couple examples. Well, 10 in fact. However, do keep in mind that the bads can be spun around in some way to be a good thing, which I will touch on at the end of each point in this video. Oh, and by the way, this video is sponsored by FreeCash, but more on that later. Now, sailing into number one, we have the obvious. You are away from home, which also means you are away from your real life. You have family and friends and a life back at home that you basically put on pause or on hold until you get back. But the reality is there is no pause. You have people that are moving forward in life, getting married, having children, and yes, you can call, and FaceTime is going to cost you a pretty penny, which we'll talk about later on. However, when you get back home, you essentially have to play catch up. Now, 9 times out of 10, it is extremely overwhelming whenever you sign off or conclude your contract and you go home and you try to essentially restart your life. You get to a point where typically you kind of isolate yourself because there's usually like a 1 to 2 week period where you're trying to catch up, and eventually you have that slowdown point where you just kind of want to be alone for a little bit and look at your finances and look at your goals and see who is going to be the priority in terms of friends and family that you want to see. And then it gets to a point where you just kind of cut yourself off if you are not organizing yourself properly. Now, the good or pro part about being away from home is that you really get to see what the world is actually like. You're going to different ports and destinations and islands. You're meeting people from all different walks of life and different cultures. It is a great learning experience to really not only understand the world, but understand yourself a little bit better as well. Number 2, finances. It sounds nice on paper that you have a place to essentially live for free, so now you get to stack up all this money and come back home rich. Well, I have to be honest with you guys, for most seafarers and crew members, that is not necessarily the case, at least for the first or second contract. In the minds of most people that are inexperienced with this type of occupation and work life, you tend to look at everything from the perspective of you don't have a lot of bills anymore, and now you have this money that you can kind of play around with. And then you meet all these amazing people, and you're going to all these places that you probably wouldn't have gone to otherwise. So now you want to get a taste of everything. And the next thing you know, you are blowing hundreds of dollars on excursions every single week. You are racking up a massive tab with those dollar beers at the crew bar. And by the time the contract has concluded, you're lucky to maybe have a couple $1,000s. And I do mean if you are lucky. Now, for those that are, let's say, financially savvy, or somebody kind of put it in their ear that they should save their money while working on board a cruise ship, a lot of the crew members that work on board typically do not really start saving until about the 2nd to 3rd contract. Number 3, relationships. I'm going to be honest with you guys. Relationships on cruise ships, 95% of the time, maybe even more, absolutely suck. And we will loop friendships into the mix as well. Now, I could make a dedicated video on cruise ship relationships, and I probably will down the road. However, what you have to understand is that onboard cruise ships, things either are transactional or they move very, very fast. The biggest element you have to understand working on board a cruise ship and dealing with relationships is that everybody is on a limited contract. People are working sometimes 2 months on board. The average is 6 to 12 months on board. However, you might get on a cruise ship and meet the love of your life, and you are just starting your cruise ship contract and they are just finishing a 12 or 13 month contract. So the minute they leave, well, you either have to break it off and now you're heartbroken in your room, or you have to try to figure out a way to make it work, which can be extremely complicated because that person that you're in love with could very well possibly live on the opposite side of the planet. Friendships are potentially not too much better. There is the contract issue, but there's also groups, and I'll be honest with you guys, some segregation here. People have what they call their paisanos, basically their friends that are from the same country or department as them, and usually when people start to mix and mingle, there's going to be a lot lot of negative talk, thinking that somebody wants something from the other or somebody is not a good person. These things tend to come out in the form of rumors and people being haters of other people's friendship. And well, there is typically a lot of drama and a lot of dislike toward other people, especially when they are not from the same place, nor do they work in the same place or department. The positive side to all of this is that you really do get to meet people from all over the world, and it is an amazing experience. And there are people that do find love and make it work, and it transcends the cruise ship and the ship life. I have a friend of mine that I talk to this day. Her husband now is from Brazil and she is from Scotland. They did get pregnant on board the cruise ship, and both of them ended up having to get fired, unfortunately. However, they are still together till this day, and they are extremely happy. Now, while you all are waiting for your beloved ship bay, let's pay some bills and help all of you potentially earn some cash as well with today's sponsor, FreeCash. FreeCash is an amazing online platform where users can earn money simply by playing mobile games, completing surveys, and much, much more. Now, of course, it is extremely important to note that FreeCash is trustworthy and credible, as they have sailed into a 4.8 star rating with Trustpilot. While using the FreeCash platform, I played Puzzles and Chaos Frozen Castle, Solitaire Clash, and my personal favorite, Palmon Survival. By the way, don't judge me on the last one, it brings back my childhood memories. Palmon Survival is a game where you literally have to survive. You gotta chop wood and get to new levels, and along the way you can catch these little creatures called Palmon that will also not only help you survive, they will fight battles for you, they even evolve. And throughout this game, you can reach rewards. They have daily rewards, they have daily bonuses, they even have a lottery in which you can win up to $35,000. Earning with FreeCash is extremely simple. I choose the game that I want to play, and yes, each game does display its earning potential. I then download the app of the game, and then I'm off to the races, as I earn by playing and completing tasks and reaching milestones. Once I've made my monies, I now have multiple easy options to withdraw at any time. I can redeem my earnings cash via direct deposit, PayPal, Amazon gift cards, and more. Oh, and by the way, I forgot to mention, they have instant payouts available as well. Did I also mention that you could do all of this while watching TV, standing in line at the grocery store, or even while on your cruise? Talk about a convenient money-making opportunity. Now today, you can sign up for FreeCash and get a $5 user sign-up bonus by clicking the link or QR code in the description box below or pinned in the comments. Seriously, I'm not sure what you're waiting for, but you're missing out on a chance to cruise into some cash. It's free. Once again, use the link or QR code below and receive a $5 sign up bonus. FreeCash, thank you so much for sponsoring today's video. Now, if all of you will excuse me, I have to get back to my Palmon Survival. Number 4, let's talk about the work hours, because they are absolutely horrible for most crew members on board. There's a reason why they get so much respect by people like me and, well, others that are in the know, because most crew members are working every day, anywhere between 9 to sometimes 12 hours. And you might ask, especially if you are an American, how in the heck is this even possible? Where the cruise lines often wave what's called a flag of convenience. And whenever you get on a cruise ship and you see they're waving like a Bohemian flag, they're doing this so they could, well, dodge some taxes and labor laws. The cruise directors, the bartenders, the maitre d's, they are all working long hours every day. Now, the positive is, one, they get a good work ethic and they are basically unstoppable. They also get a good memory because they kind of have to always be there. There's a reason why they remember all of your names the first day of the cruise and absolutely never forget it. Number 5, burnout. Now, this one kind of comes stock with almost every single crew member. The trick is that they are burnt out all the time. They are exhausted. They don't want to be there a lot of the time, but eventually they kind of trick their brain into saying, hey, this is what we want. This is what we want to do. We want to make some monies and ensure the guests have a genuinely good time. And they truly believe this. Do they have bad days like everybody else? Yes, well, we all do, even when we are on vacation. So imagine the crew members that are working every single day, and then every weekend, week out, some passengers leave and then they get a new batch of cookies, some more passengers, and they have to do it all over again. We call that turnaround day, which it is not the greatest day for the crew members because basically the clock starts all over again for them. You are put to the test to your absolute limit, and I do believe this is also a positive because, well, when you figure out what exactly you're made of, whether you are the captain or the cruise director or even an entertainer on board, and you are working during those rough sea days and pretending like it is a regular day over in the Caribbean, It, once again, just like my other point, essentially makes you unstoppable, a real force to be reckoned with. Number 6, you get no personal space on board a cruise ship most of the time. Now, if you are a high-ranking crew member, or let's say when I work for Norwegian, even as an entertainer, we were called principal characters, and we get our own little small cabin with a shoilet, basically a shower and toilet combination. It's absolutely disgusting that you share with the person that is right next door to you, but you don't get space, meaning everybody is essentially on top of each other. You see pretty much the same people every day, and then there are people that are concluding contracts and they're switched out with another person that is also basically on top of you. So whether you go out to grab a smoke or you go to the crew bar, you are with people all the time, which is somebody that's maybe like an antisocial person's worst nightmare. Socially, as you could imagine, this does affect things as well. By that I mean everybody knows everybody's business. You have no privacy whatsoever. Everybody knows who you are dating. Everybody knows who you went to with the other 5 crew members, with the cabin party. Everybody knows everything that's going on, and it spreads like wildfire. I guess the only positive thing to all of this, and yeah, it is a pretty big positive thing, is that if you are a social person, you are absolutely going to thrive working on a cruise ship in most cases. If you're somebody that causes drama, well, trust me, everybody will find out very, very quickly. And if you're an antisocial person, well, this might be a good opportunity for you to be able to fix that, because I believe as humans, we are social creatures. And if you're not a social person, then either go on a cruise ship or get therapy, one of the two. Number 7, the culture shock. Nothing is like how it is at home. The personal space, people don't have any, the smells, the food. I don't know how many times I went to the Mess, that's the restaurant on board for the crew that is down in the dungeon where we all hang out at, and they have some mystery meat, and I'll be honest, like I did kind of learn to like it. I don't know if I was eating a dragon or quail, I had no idea, but I did learn to love it, and there's always rice. I love me some good rice, so it did work out in a lot of ways. The obvious pro here is that you are immersed in different cultures. Fun fact, on any particular cruise ship, whether it be small or large, you are typically surrounded by anywhere between 60 to 70 different nationalities. So you could learn yourself something, stuff you probably wouldn't learn otherwise sitting at home. Number 8, random expenses. Now, this one can be very frustrating because there are things that you would pay for while working on board a cruise ship that you would never pay while you were at home. Let's say, for example, you have things that you want to send home or things that you want brought over to you from home. You have to pay for that to be mailed to whatever home port the ship is at. It is then delivered to you, and there are times where it could take longer, so maybe you have to pay additional prices to get it expedited over. It is a giant mess. There's stuff that you might need that is available at the cruise store because every cruise ship has it, and which you do have to pay potentially a little extra for, or in the home port or whatever port of call you're in, you maybe have to take a cab or a bus to go find any personal items like a hygienic product or anything of that nature. This stuff will add up very, very quickly. And don't get me started on the Wi-Fi. This is probably the most frustrating one because Wi-Fi can add up very, very quickly. Now, in modern times, in this digital revolution, there are cruise lines like, for example, Virgin Voyages that offers the crew members free basic Wi-Fi. However, when I worked for Norwegian, it was $20 for 120 minutes of internet. And that might sound like a lot. However, imagine trying to call home to your mommy or calling home to a friend and every single call drops. Every text message needs to be sent 3 different times. This does not stop the clock. So that meter is running and it is gone and out of time before you can say Caribbean. Now for this one, I guess the only pro that's out there maybe is that you learn really well how to budget. Number 9, the food. I pray for anybody that has any allergies, any restrictions, if you are a leaf-eating vegetarian or even a vegan, maybe even a pescatarian, because 9 times out of 10, you are not going to get exactly what you want on board a cruise ship as a crew member. You're going to have to go down to the mess and essentially eat what is there, like as if you were a child. You don't get much range of choice. There's mystery meat, there is a lot of fish most of the time, and an abundance of rice. price, but unless you have some type of status, like for example, I was a principal character with Norwegian, but when I was working for Virgin or even when I worked for Carnival, it was not necessarily the case. But if you are somebody that has what's called guest privileges as a crew member, then you do have the opportunity at times to go up to the guest areas and eat there. However, you do have to remember that the guests come first. Otherwise, you're going to get in a lot of trouble. And trust me, the Big Brother is watching you up there. The only pro here, I guess, is that there just isn't a lot of junk food. So while you're not necessarily eating healthy, you're also not necessarily getting fat either. And chances are in most positions and occupations on board cruise ships, you're probably running around anyway. So you typically are going to stay reasonably fit while working on board a cruise ship. Finally, for number 10, we have mental problems. And I say this somewhat lightly because working on board a cruise ship will change you for sometimes the best situations and sometimes the worst. Let's talk about socially first. It is very different in terms of the environment on cruise ships versus the real world. I once had some friends long before I worked on board cruise ships. I was working at Busch Gardens, this theme park over here in Tampa, and I had some friends that I would see occasionally when they were signed off in between their contracts, and it was a couple. They worked on board cruise ships for over 10 years, and socially things are different in the sense that how you make friends and how you communicate with other people. Things are quicker, I want to say. Things are very transactional, and these people are some of the people that honestly the people on land didn't like that well, and it wasn't because they were bad people. It's just because of the way they communicated. Everything was very blunt, everything was kind of straightforward, and there was no genuine sincerity in the tone of their voices. I know as regular land people, normal people, this probably doesn't make any sense to you guys, but if you have worked on a cruise ship, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Even when it comes to talking to the fellas and the ladies and trying to find a love life. Like I said earlier, the love life and relationships are different on cruise ships versus back on land, and it does take a while to kind of snap out because things are very quick, they progress very quickly, and when you're on land, it doesn't necessarily operate like that. You are going to come off as a very unstable person that is, let's say, a hopeless romantic or somebody that is moving just a little too fast. And by a little, I mean a lot. Now, there are more serious things that can happen in terms of somebody's mental state on board cruise ships, as we unfortunately saw in 2020 during the COVID pandemic. You have people that were developing depression, you have people that were developing anxiety on very, very high levels. It doesn't happen to all crew members, but you got to think when you are away from your family, potentially your children, and your normal life back at home for months and months, even a year on end, it is potentially going to do something if you are not living a healthy lifestyle or communicating regularly with your family back at home. Now, the good thing here is that you typically will form a impenetrable mental shield. You can take on anything. It doesn't matter what it is. Nothing is too stressful back on land. Nothing is going to be too mentally draining if you have worked properly on a cruise ship and made it out alive and you make it back home. You're going to feel like at home things are moving slow and that everything is really a non-issue for the most part. Anywho, this is what I have for today's video. Hope you guys found this informative and productive, especially for those out there that want to potentially work on board a cruise ship. However, do keep in mind that this is my personal perspective and the perspective and opinions of others when I worked on board cruise ships and friends of mine that are still working on board cruise ships till this day. You can do a cruise ship contract and have a completely different experience. Just be mindful of that. But that's what I have, guys. Of course, hit that like button on your way out. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. And randomly, if you guys do want to book a cruise, let's say you're on the other side and you're a passenger, you can check out our amazing official sponsor over at Lux Rally. We will give you the best vacation possible at the best possible price. Link in the description box below. I appreciate you guys, and I'll see you later. Take it easy.